Well, bummer. I was hoping that was going to go on for a bit longer yet. It was good while it lasted, though. Great way to start the video. Yes, I believe it was good, and I've decided to accept the acclamations that I've bestowed upon myself. And I'd like to thank all the pockets in my pyjamas. Except I don't wear pyjamas. So you're probably thinking of the wrong person. Grassy Beans is who I am. And I claim the authority to insist that I am the only earthbound identity to be actively blundering my way through an attempted restructuring of the basic lore for what is arguably the most superlative game ever to have graced the circuit boards of PCs and PlayStations all over the world. 7 Days to Die. Grassy Beans has spoken and apologises for the clunkiness of that last statement. In the last episode, Hickory was smearing words all over your face with absolute criminal neglect, so I admire your choice. But don't let that fact stop you from breathing. Many people die from the want of another breath of air. And what I mean by that is, g'day, I'm Grassy Beans, and this is the next episode of my alternative lore for 7 Days to Die. And my favourite food is kumquat. This episode is called Who Are the Scarkin? So I'm probably going to talk about who the Scarkin are, and not something else. Now let's all be quiet so I can finish what I was doing, which is explaining to you who the Scarkin are. First, some specific Scarkin lore. The Scarkin are not cannibals. They don't bite, and they're not trying to eat you, your skin, or your brains. You can see this for yourself. You don't even have to take my word for it. Just stand in front of some of them for a few seconds. You'll see that none of them will bite you. And that's because they're not zombies. Biting is a zombie trait. These are not zombies. They are Scarkin, a totally different unlife altogether. The only attack the Scarkin have in their arsenal is hitting, or what you might call melee. In other words, if you're gonna just stand there like an idiot, they're gonna give you one bloody good flogging. They will strike out and belt you, and they do so with extreme ferocity. So much so that they'll often stun you and even break your leg, and they are often known to open up gaping wounds causing severe bleeding, in which case you'll bleed out to the point of Protocol 2 and 3 induction. I'll explain why they exhibit that aggressive behaviour shortly. Right now, I've got a second level bun in the oven, and it's going to be decorated with pink sprinkles in the outcome. And now I'm actually going to do some talk about who the Scarkin are. I've identified some 16 different Scarkin, plus some animals. And I'm talking specifically in this game that I'm playing on my PlayStation 4. Not your lamentable PC version with all your extra doodads and such like. No, I'm talking about us poor forgotten console gamers. We demand equality, and definitely not monogamous polygamy. Because that would be like the suck at the end of a fallopian bagpipe. And I know the bagpipes don't have suck, they actually have blow. But I don't like the way that sounds. Fallopian bagpipe blow? So no, it's a suck. And a bag can be called a sack, so it's a fallopian suck sack, which has nothing to do with cell sack, because cell sack doesn't suck fallopionically or otherwise. And crap, I've forgotten where I was going with that. So back to the Scarkin, I guess. The 16 Scarkin that I have encountered so far, I've broken into two groups. One group I call Scabs, and the other group I call Clans, and the reason for those names will become clear to you when I tell you the reason for those names, which I'll do right now. I'll cover the smaller group first, the Clans. They're a group of just 7 Scarkin, and I call this group the Clans because they're all people from Hickory's home clan, and you've already met 3 of them in episode 10, so the others I'll try to name as we encounter them on our travels. I'm not going to try and do it during this legendary battle though, it's just too intense. I may try some dramatic music though. It might help make things a little more isometric around here. I don't know, sometimes I get the feeling that you guys are a little bit put off by my flagrant lack of isometricity. I should probably tell you a dad joke that might fix it. Schrodinger asked his vet, "How's my cat, Doc?" And the vet said, "I've got good news and I've got bad news." Now here's the music I promised. Well, that went on for a while. What was holding your attention? I'm afraid I wandered off to see a man about a dog.
Now, I'm hoping that you can read and listen at the same time, because I'm just going to keep talking through this scrolling text that you're probably trying to read right now. I mean, I could just read the text for you, but I don't want to. Besides, I've got my hands full taking a piss right now, so, I can't really look away. So, do your own reading.
I got bigger things to look at.
So I'm so glad that I've got the kill cage well fortified and guarded. It gives me such a sense of domination over what is otherwise a hopeless situation. My latest protective addition is the surrounding head-high bull bar, and you can see it just outside the bars there. It keeps the skarks at arm's length from the main structure. They've got to break through that before they can get to the main building itself. It also serves a second purpose. It stops the climbing skarks. They can climb up a straight wall, but they can't climb out underneath anything. And of course you can shoot straight through the bars. They're not any kind of obstruction. Plus, the split-level design of the kill cage means that I can execute my attack from above, or if I choose, I can meet them face to face like I'm doing here. All in all, my kill cage just rocks, like a coming orgasmic epiphany. And if you don't know what that means, have a good think about it. You might just come to some sort of an inspirational insight. Oh, I stopped talking there for a bit. Distracted by what you were thinking about, I'd say. Your mind is in a boat of filth. Ugh. But I reckon I might go do some outy stuff now that the sun has dawned and had its subduing effect on the Scarkin trash. I'll get back to what I was talking about before the horde began soon. Right now I'm going to follow into the topic that I just touched on then, and that is why the Scarkin run at night and not during the day. It's really quite simple. Ultraviolet light from the sun causes the dysfunctional computing nodes within the S-plasma to overcompensate. And you know what that means. Well, no you don't. I don't even know what it means. Let's say it causes rigid muscle and ligament tissue which seriously impedes their ability to move. I didn't just make that up. I wrote it down first, but I made it up before I wrote it down. Did you see that flawless skill? Never mind. Now I'm just being a klutz. What the hell, she's dead enough anyway. I think I'll just go back to what I was saying. I was saying very important stuff that I didn't make up, but I did write down. But I did say it very authoritatively, which makes it sound like I know what I'm talking about, which I do because I wrote that down too. And on top of those things that I didn't make up but I did write down, also there's the fact that the Skarkin's eyes no longer function normally, which means that they are partially blind in the daylight, but see very well at night. And that's something that'll need an explanation of its own later on. I've got so much stuff that I have to cover later on. If this keeps up, I'll still be making these videos when Schrodinger's cat dies. Or doesn't die. I'm not obsessed with Erwin Rudolf Joseph Alexander Schrödinger either. The fact that I know he was a Nobel Prize-winning Austrian-Irish physicist is purely coincidental. I just know a little bit about him, that's all. I mean, you probably know as much about Albert Einstein, who didn't like cats either, by the way. After each horde night, I'll usually spend the next day repairing the damage done by the previous night's onslaught. Just gotta be careful not to go too far and upgrade any blocks before I'm ready, because that is just an out-and-out royal piss-off.
Motherfucker.
Because then you've got to replace all of them now. It sucks. I wasn't ready to do this yet. Bothersome grumbles. This is all your fault. You're gonna have to make more steel now. What a moderate inconvenience that'll be. Plus, I'm doing it again. I'm not talking about what I said I was going to talk about. Who the Scarkin are, and not something else. A little bit distracted here. So, while I'm being so distracted here, and before I start back in on definitive Scarkin identification, I've got a bit of a chronology that I'm going to distract you with while I formulate the rest of the story of the Scarkin. Actually, that's not true. I do actually have a Scarkin Genesis story that I prepared earlier. I know it might seem like I'm just making this all up as I go along, but shut up, whatever. I'm only going to give you the Scarkin Genesis story later, because I've actually started telling you about something else now. And like I told you before, I'm kind of obsessive compulsive, and because of that, whenever I start on something, I absolutely must finish. Fuck! Fucking did it again. This one's your fault too. Now on top of steel, I've got to make more cement. This moderate inconvenience you started is quickly becoming somewhat of a penetrating anal rupture, and they're not nice. So I've been told. But now back to the chronology that I was going to distract you with earlier. It's a story about my pet mouse, and I'm going to put it in scrolling text so you can follow along with it, because it's a bit complicated, as you'll see. This is the legacy of Duck. I once had a pet mouse that I called Duck. I called him Duck because my pet duck doesn't quack, he squeaks like a mouse. I didn't call my duck Squeak because my mouse doesn't squeak like a mouse or quack like a duck. I called my pet duck Cat because I've never had a pet cat. My pet mouse that I called Duck was eaten by my pet snake that I called Kitten, and I called the snake Kitten because not only did he eat my pet mouse that I called Duck, he also ate my kitten, and that's why I've never had a pet cat. And I couldn't call the snake Mouse because that was the dog's name. The kitten's name was Breakfast. Not because he was eaten by Kitten the snake, that was just an ironic coincidence, but because the dog ate my breakfast while I was trying to catch Duck the mouse while he was running from Kitten my snake. Unfortunately, Kitten the snake caught Duck the mouse before I did, so I named the dog Mouse just to remind me that I'd failed to rescue Duck the mouse in time. Such is the legacy of Duck. You know, I really love wasting your time with the absolute twaddle that comes from the very state of my being conscious. And to me, consciousness is that annoying time between sleeps, during which I'm forced to interact with reality and my own consciousness. Why the fuck can't I hit this dog? He's right there. Yes, that's a good doggy. You come here now. I'm not going to do much. Just kill you mostly. Ah, yes, the gratification of the kill, it's always worth the wait. Now this guy here, he's one of the scab Scarkin, but I'm not going to introduce him right now because he's not on screen for long enough, as you see. And you've met Cousin Twitchy, of course. There's a lot more to know about these guys. It's going to take me a long time to develop their stories fully, because as you know, it often takes me more than a month to make a video. And that's all very sad, but it's not my fault. I've got 12 other people I can blame, including you. And you're probably thinking, me? What the fuck did... And I haven't finished that sentence yet, I'm still working on it. I'll get round to finishing it one day, in another episode. But you see, the reason I mostly blame you is because I've decided to believe, just for the purpose of this exercise of course, that you suck fallopionically. And not just fallopionically. You suck supremely fallopionically, just like the other 12 people that I blame. So you can see from that explanation that it's not my fault at all. And I forget what I was talking about, so I don't know what's not my fault. Anyway, back to the story. What a perfect reintroduction to the story. This screaming sucksow is one of the most annoying Scarkin you'll come across. You can see the depth of hatred, bloodlust and psychosis in her eyes, and her milky pale skin gives credence to the soulless, abhorrent shell of a monstrous existence that she is. She makes me want to spit on her and piss on her at the same time. Anyway, enough about my ex-wife. We've got Scarkin to identify. Look at that, fucked her up with one hit. And she's one of the scab Scarkin as well. So it's good that I'm starting with her. The official story says that her screams will summon a horde, and while ever she continues screaming, she will continue to summon hordes. Hers is one backstory that I don't mind. According to the original lore, the idea is to kill her as quickly as possible to stop the overwhelming flood of hordes that she's about to bring into existence. But, as interesting as her story is, I have rewritten it entirely. To start with, she doesn't summon hordes. she heralds the onslaught of a horde cluster. And now you'd probably say, that's the same fucking thing, idiot. But no, that just shows how stupid I think you are. They're not the same thing at all. Do you see how I just shot your stupid argument out of the air then? It's no wonder you suck. Anyway, that's why she is the most annoying of the Scarkin. Not because of what she does, but because of what she represents. You know that when you see her, there's a diarrhea storm of Scarkin about to go viral. And it's gonna be all over you. And she's always the first of the cluster to appear. And as you can see here, she has indeed preceded a most unpleasant batch of troublesome dregs. The explanation of why she always precedes such a repugnant cluster of Scarkin is a long and in-depth one, so I'll start on it now, but I'll probably have to defer the full explanation until I can fit it in somewhere else. To start with, just like all the other Scarkin, I have a few names that I call her, so if I'm not calling her a screaming sucksour, it'll be something else like Wild Banshee, Feral Festifemme, Manic Misery Muff, or my ex. You get the idea. I won't always call her the same thing. And it's not her screams that manifest the other Scarkin. According to my law, once she has arrived, the rest of them are bound to come through. Unless. You see, I've put a qualifying condition there so that my law doesn't contradict the basis of the primitive original storyline. My law parallels the existing Sucky law in all the most essential ways, meaning that I've kept the essence of the original uninspired story and built a masterpiece over the remains of its putrid, rotting corpse. But back to the shrieking wild banshee bitch. Her name before she underwent scarkification was Mariah Elvina. And I could say that she was born in Australia, but we don't want the South, so she came from your country that isn't Australia. So good luck with that. She comes with a lot of baggage, and she caused a lot of trouble in her time, because she was the leader of a minor mutiny in the past. And now that I've introduced that topic, I'm going to have to leave the fuck ugly Festifemme now and talk about this new development. Because understanding that topic will give you who the Scarkin are. And with that, I've come right back to what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, where I told you I was going to talk about who the Scarkin are and not something else. So I did do what I said I was going to do, but I also didn't do what I didn't say I was going to do. Or to say it another way, I did also do what I said I wasn't going to do. And now for those of you who are like me and as confused as curried cum, this is what I mean. How the fuck did I get on this topic again? I think I should be talking about the mutiny. Okay, so about this minor mutiny. I can tell you there were around a dozen or more people involved in the group. Most of them I've encountered at one time or another in this story. Others I have yet to meet. And you see, I've left that part of the story deliberately open-ended. Because in the future, if our console games are ever updated and they add extra Scarkin, I can just throw them into the story as it happens. And that is intensely clever of me, so thank you. And if you haven't already guessed, these mutineers are of course those that I call the Scabs. And before the mutiny, they were all members of the Free Radicals, which means that they were S-plasma enhanced and supposedly trustworthy, honourable people. So what do you suppose it was that could have been so alluring to have had the power to seduce these trustworthy, honourable people away from this truly sturdy foundation that was the Free Radicals? Well, it's no surprise I was rambling about it all the way through episode 10. They were lured into betrayal by money. Same old story, right? The unspeakable atrocities that people will stoop to for the sake of money. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against money. It's a perfectly fine tool if you need to accomplish something. However, it has its shortcomings. So to add to my rantings in episode 10, I'm now going to say this. You assholes are so unsufferably annoying. Oh, now this is another one of the clan Scarkin. Her name is Leoli Penelope. And of course the name Leoli Penelope is French in origin. It loosely translates to mean, my name is Leoli Penelope.
It loses something in the translation. Oh, and here's Tim the Torchman. These guys aren't all that bright. Oh, he got me with fire. How'd he do that? And then I had a quick swim, apparently. And now back to the money thing. Capitalism may be a good social motivational system, and it may even come close to being one of the best. But there is something that it cannot compensate for. Capitalism, in order to work properly, relies on the premise that people will conduct themselves and their business in a fair and just manner. But history has shown us, and we all know it innately, that to rely on that premise is utterly futile. Yes, most people are reliable, honest, fair and trustworthy in their general lives, but when it comes to matters of profit, and profit is the central driving force behind capitalism, these same people are suddenly driven by a force that renders their former honourable and moral selves completely and utterly not. And as you'll well know, of course, not is the opposite of is. And this force is so compelling that it can and in fact has moved people to kill. And not just kill anyone, they've been known to kill close friends and even family. I spoke about the all-powerful ruling control that money has over people in episode 9 and 10. But as I said, I've got nothing against money, nor do I have anything against people who have money. But if you can ignore all the ruthless, callous and unspeakable things that people do to one another for the sake of money, then yep, money, profit and capitalism is just peachy. Regrettably, we all ignore those ruthless goings-on and we turn a blind eye to that situation. You know about those things as well as anyone else on the planet. If you can honestly say that you have never heard of some atrocity committed to another person for the sake of money, then you are either 2 years old or you're lying to yourself. But that's for you to deal with. And instead of working to fix the problem, we all complain about the unjust world we live in, while the callous, the ruthless and the unjust continue along their merry way. But is money actually responsible for this behaviour among people? Or is it just human nature being revealed and money is simply the catalyst that allows the truth of our real selves to become exposed? Unfortunately, it's the latter. We are who we are. Money is an inanimate object. It's only we who give money the power that it has over us. Nature tells us to survive, learn and seek abundance. Money has taken nature's programming of seek abundance and replaced it with a new compulsion, greed. But it's the same thing, isn't it? Seek abundance and greed, they both mean get more. God, it sounds like I'm getting preachy, doesn't it? I better lighten up. So, a complete change of pace now. And by the way, I'm working up to something with that whole money thing, so just hang tight, I'll get there one of these episodes. I'm gonna stop here for a short reality check. When it comes to gaming, I'm a complete novice. And if we're talking specifically about PS4 gaming, I'm still a raw beginner. And even when it comes to the one game that I adore/play the most, 7 Days to Die, I make no claim of expertise. Ooh, but look here, there's a bear out there, and he's gonna put the kill cage's integrity to the test. A bear's whack is like 10 Scarkin at once. And he fits right under the head-high bull bar, so he goes right to the foundational blocks. This is a priority kill. Also, this is one of the animal Scarkin that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. And you might be wondering how I explain the existence of animal Scarkin. Well, it's actually quite simple. When the S-plasma was developed by the free radical scientists, it was only ever distributed among the most dedicated members of the free radical movement. It was then each individual's choice whether to use their dose or destroy it. You see, the timing of the development of the S-plasma was very instrumental in the outcome of who eventually acquired S-plasma enhancement and who didn't. More on this later. For now, it's another thing that I'll cover downstream a little. But some of those who received the enhancement option chose to enhance their pets instead of themselves. Don't judge them too harshly, it was a crazy world at the time. But now to get back and finish what I was saying before the bear blitz. I think I said as far as gaming was concerned, I was still in the neophytic stage, and although I play 7 Days to Die more often than I breathe, I'm still as unconsummated as a bear trying to break into a kill cage. However, and I've said this before, the official lore of 7 Days to Die really sucks. And you don't need to be an expert to know that, but I can understand that there would be some devotees of the game that don't like their precious game's core values being disemboweled and rehashed like I'm doing. So, with respect to those devotees, I say to you,
Listen to me very carefully.
please do fuck off, I said in a calming melodic tone. I'm doing this rehash for myself. If you like it, you're welcome. If you don't like it, I don't care very much. That's why I suggested that you fuck off so very politely. But did I cover the topic that I set for myself in this video? Yes, I agree that I did. Not in a lot of detail, mind you, but covered the Scarkin have been. So now I'll tell you one more thing, and then I'll tell you something else. Rather than being forced to deal with my own consciousness on a daily basis, I choose to play 7 Days to Die because it is my respite from my own actual tedious reality. And now, here's a mental image that you may or may not take pleasure from. Although this is a violent, bloodthirsty and brutal game, I find it strangely and exceptionally arousing. Got a bumhole in one. And now it's getting late. I'd better start preparing for the night. Salsac, share and like, subscribe and comment, or prepare to die. You have 7 days.